Hello and welcome to Nightmare Lullabies. As you settle in for the night, prepare to be immersed in a world of eerie whispers and unsettling tales, designed to both chill and soothe. Now close your eyes, relax, and let the darkness carry you away. And if these nightly tales captivate you, feel free to join our community for more whispered secrets. In the summer of 2015, 21-year-old Lauren Agee was looking forward to a weekend of fun and relaxation in Smithville, Tennessee. She lived in Hendersonville, a small town just outside Nashville, where she worked as a server at a local restaurant while dreaming of a future in criminal justice. Lauren was known for her vibrant personality. She loved music, wakeboarding, and spending time with friends. She had a close relationship with her mother, Sherry Smith, 45, a single mom who had raised Lauren and her siblings with fierce devotion. On July 24, 2015, Lauren packed her bags for WakeFest, a popular wakeboarding event at Center Hill Lake, a sprawling reservoir known for its clear waters and scenic cliffs. Lauren was joined by a group of friends for the trip: Aaron Lilly, 23, a laid-back guy she had known since high school; Christopher Stout, 22, Aaron's best friend who was known for his party-loving attitude; Hannah Palmer, 21, Christopher's girlfriend; and Brixner Gambrell, 22, another friend of Aaron's. The group planned to camp on a cliff overlooking the lake, a spot known as Pate's Ford Marina, where they could enjoy the festival, swim, and soak in the summer sun. Lauren was excited, texting her mom that morning, "I can't wait to wakeboard. It's going to be an amazing weekend." Sherry smiled at the message, happy to see her daughter so full of life, but she couldn't shake a small feeling of unease. She always worried when Lauren was away. The drive to Center Hill Lake was filled with laughter and music, with Lauren singing along to her favorite country songs in Aaron's truck. They arrived at the campsite in the late afternoon, setting up their tents and a couple of hammocks on the cliff, which stood about 30 feet above the water. The view was breathtaking, with the lake stretching out below, shimmering under the July sun. WakeFest was in full swing, with boats zipping across the water and wakeboarders showing off their skills. Lauren and her friends joined the crowd, cheering on the competitors and enjoying drinks at a floating bar called the Floating Restaurant. Lauren posted a photo on Instagram at 5 p.m., smiling with a drink in her hand, the lake sparkling behind her. The caption read, "Living my best life at WakeFest." As the evening progressed, the group returned to their campsite to continue the party. They built a small fire, played music, and passed around a bottle of whiskey. Lauren, who wasn't a heavy drinker, had a few drinks but seemed in good spirits, laughing and joking with her friends. Aaron later recalled that Lauren was her usual self, chatting about her plans to enroll in a criminal justice program that fall. But as the night wore on, the group's dynamic shifted. Christopher and Hannah got into a heated argument, their voices rising over the crackle of the fire. Lauren tried to mediate, always the peacemaker, but the tension lingered. Around midnight, the group decided to call it a night. Lauren told Aaron she was tired and wanted to sleep in one of the hammocks overlooking the lake. She grabbed a blanket, climbed into the hammock, and settled in, the sound of the water lapping below lulling her into a sense of calm. The others retreated to their tents, with Christopher and Hannah still bickering as they went. Brixner, who had been drinking heavily, passed out near the fire. The campsite grew quiet, the only sounds the rustle of leaves and the distant hum of boats on the lake. The next morning, July 26, 2015, the group woke up to a shocking discovery. Lauren's hammock was empty, her blanket tangled in the ropes. Aaron called out for her, thinking she might have gone for an early swim, but there was no sign of her. At 8 a.m., a boater on the lake spotted a body floating face down in a cove near the cliff. It was Lauren, her blonde hair fanned out in the water, her body motionless. The boater called 911, and within minutes, emergency responders arrived, pulling Lauren's body from the lake. She was pronounced dead at the scene, her death initially attributed to drowning. The news reached Sherry Smith at 10 a.m., when a police officer called her home in Hendersonville. I'm sorry to inform you that your daughter, Lauren Agee, was found deceased this morning, the officer said, his voice heavy with sympathy. Sherry dropped the phone, her screams echoing through the house as her world shattered. The idyllic weekend getaway had turned into a nightmare, and the questions surrounding Lauren's death were only beginning to surface. The morning of July 26, 2015, at Center Hill Lake in Smithville, Tennessee, was filled with a chilling stillness as emergency responders pulled the body of 21-year-old Lauren Agee from the water. She had been found floating face down in a cove near Pate's Ford Marina, just below the cliff where she and her friends had been camping during WakeFest, a wakeboarding festival. Lauren had gone to sleep in a hammock the previous night after a day of fun with her friends, Erin Lilly, Christopher Stout, Hannah Palmer, and Brixner Gambrell. But now she was gone, her life cut short in a way that no one could have predicted. As the news of her death spread, the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office launched an investigation, but the conclusions they reached would soon spark doubt and suspicion in the mind of Lauren's grieving mother, Sherry Smith. Sheriff Patrick Ray, 50, arrived at the scene shortly after the 911 call from the boater who had discovered Lauren's body at 8 a.m. The area around the cliff was bustling with activity as deputies cordoned off the campsite, where Lauren's friends were still reeling from the shock. Erin Lilly, 23, was the first to speak with the deputies, his voice shaky as he explained what he knew. "We were all drinking last night," he said, running a hand through his hair. "Lauren went to sleep in the hammock around midnight. When we woke up, she wasn't there. We thought maybe she went for a swim, but then we heard about the body in the lake." Christopher Stout, 22, and Hannah Palmer, 21, echoed Erin's account, saying they had all been asleep in their tents and hadn't heard anything unusual during the night. Brixner Gambrell, 22, admitted he had passed out near the fire after drinking heavily and didn't remember much after 11 p.m. The deputies examined the campsite, noting the hammock where Lauren had slept, which was positioned about 30 feet above the water. The blanket she had used was still tangled in the ropes, but there were no obvious signs of a struggle. No blood, no torn fabric, nothing to suggest foul play. Below the cliff, Lauren's body had been found in a shallow cove, her blonde hair fanned out in the water. She was wearing a t-shirt and shorts, but her bikini top and bottom, which she had been wearing the previous day, were missing. The deputies collected her body and sent it to the medical examiner's office in Nashville for an autopsy, hoping to determine the cause of death. Sherry Smith, Lauren's mother, arrived at the lake around noon, her heart pounding with dread. She had driven from Hendersonville as soon as she received the call from the police, her mind racing with questions. When she reached the marina, Sheriff Ray met her, his expression somber. "I'm so sorry for your loss, Miss Smith," he said, guiding her to a quiet spot away from the crowd. "We believe Lauren may have fallen from the cliff during the night. She was found in the water, and we're waiting on the autopsy to confirm the cause of death." Sherry's hands trembled as she clutched a photo of Lauren, her mind struggling to process the words. "Fallen?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "How could she just fall? She was in a hammock. She wouldn't just get up and walk off a cliff in the dark." The autopsy was conducted the following day, July 27, 2015, by Dr. Amy Hawes, a forensic pathologist at the Tennessee State Medical Examiner's Office. The report concluded that Lauren had died of drowning, with blunt force trauma as a contributing factor. Her blood alcohol level was 0.17, more than twice the legal limit, suggesting she had been heavily intoxicated. Dr. Hawes noted injuries on Lauren's body, including bruises on her arms and legs, a fractured pelvis, and a small laceration on her forehead, which she attributed to a fall from the cliff. There were no signs of defensive wounds or sexual assault, and the official cause of death was listed as accidental drowning. The report suggested that Lauren, impaired by alcohol, had likely gotten out of the hammock, stumbled in the dark, and fallen off the cliff into the water below, where she drowned. Sheriff Ray released the findings to the public on July 28, 2015, at a press conference in Smithville. "Based on the evidence and the autopsy, we believe Lauren Agee's death was a tragic accident," he said, his tone measured. She was intoxicated, and the cliff was a dangerous spot, especially at night. There's no indication of foul play at this time. The case was officially closed as an accident, and the sheriff's office informed Lauren's friends that they were not considered suspects. Aaron, Christopher, Hannah, and Brixner were free to return to their lives, though they were visibly shaken by the loss of their friend. But Sherry Smith couldn't accept the official conclusion. She had known Lauren her entire life, and the idea that her daughter would simply stumble off a cliff in the middle of the night didn't make sense. Lauren was cautious, even when drinking, and she had a strong fear of heights. She would never have gone near the edge of a cliff in the dark. On July 29, 2015, Sherry sat down with her sister, Lisa, 42, at her home in Hendersonville, poring over the autopsy report. "Look at these injuries," Sherry said, pointing to the description of the bruises and the fractured pelvis. "If she fell, why are there bruises on her arms like someone grabbed her? And where's her bikini? She was wearing it all day. Something's not right." Sherry's suspicions grew as she spoke with Lauren's friends in the days following the investigation. Aaron told her that Lauren had been fine when she went to sleep, but he seemed evasive when Sherry asked if anyone had checked on her during the night. Christopher and Hannah's accounts of the evening were inconsistent. Hannah claimed they had all gone to bed at the same time, while Christopher said he and Hannah had stayed up arguing for another hour. Brixner, who had been too drunk to remember much, couldn't provide any useful information. The more Sherry learned, the more she felt that the official story didn't add up. On August 1, 2015, Sherry decided to take matters into her own hands. She contacted a private investigator named Sheila Wysocki, 48, who had a reputation for taking on cases where families felt the police had failed them. Wysocki agreed to meet with Sherry in Smithville the following week, promising to look into Lauren's death with fresh eyes. "I'll do everything I can to find the truth," Wysocki told Sherry over the phone, her voice firm with determination. For Sherry, it was the first glimmer of hope in a sea of grief, a chance to uncover what really happened to her daughter on that fateful night at Center Hill Lake. In the weeks following the death of 21-year-old Lauren Agee on July 26, 2015, at Center Hill Lake in Smithville, Tennessee, her mother, Sherry Smith, was consumed by grief and doubt. The DeKalb County Sheriff's Office had ruled Lauren's death an accidental drowning, concluding that she had fallen from a 30-foot cliff while intoxicated during a camping trip at WakeFest, a wakeboarding festival. But Sherry couldn't accept the official story. The autopsy report, which listed drowning as the cause of death with blunt force trauma as a contributing factor, raised more questions than answers for her. Lauren's injuries, bruises on her arms, a fractured pelvis, and a laceration on her forehead, didn't align with a simple fall, and the absence of her bikini added to Sherry's suspicion that something sinister had happened that night. Determined to find the truth, Sherry took a bold step, hiring a private investigator to dig deeper into her daughter's death. Sherry met with Sheila Wysocki, a 48-year-old private investigator based in Nashville, on August 8, 2015, at a small coffee shop in Smithville, just a few miles from Center Hill Lake. Wysocki had a reputation for taking on cases where families felt the police had failed them, and she was known for her tenacity and attention to detail. Sherry brought a folder filled with documents, the autopsy report, the sheriff's findings, and notes from her conversations with Lauren's friends. Her hands trembled as she handed the folder to Wysocki, her voice breaking with emotion. "I know something's wrong," Sherry said, her eyes red from sleepless nights. "Lauren wouldn't just fall off a cliff. She was careful, even when she drank. I need to know what really happened to my daughter." Wysocki listened intently, her expression serious as she flipped through the pages. "I'll take the case," she said, placing a reassuring hand on Sherry's arm. "We'll start from scratch and see what the police might have missed." Wysocki began her investigation by revisiting the campsite at Pate's Ford Marina on August 10, 2015. The cliff where Lauren and her friends had camped was still marked with remnants of their stay: faded campfire ashes, a few empty beer cans, and the hammock where Lauren had slept, still tied between two trees. Waisaki walked to the edge of the cliff, peering down at the water 30 feet below. The drop was steep, with jagged rocks jutting out along the way, but the hammock was positioned several feet back from the edge. Waisaki noted that it would have been difficult for Lauren to accidentally stumble to the cliff's edge in the dark, especially if she had been asleep in the hammock as her friends claimed. She took photos of the area, documenting the layout and the distance between the hammock and the drop, her mind already racing with questions. Next, Waisaki interviewed Lauren's friends, starting with Aaron Lilly, who had been the first to speak with the police. On August 12, 2015, she met Aaron at his apartment in Nashville, where he lived while working as a mechanic. Aaron, now 23, seemed nervous as he sat across from Waisaki, his hands fidgeting with a coffee mug. "We were all drinking that night," he said, repeating the story he had told the police. "Lauren went to sleep in the hammock around midnight. I checked on her before I went to my tent, and she was fine. When we woke up, she was gone." But Waisaki pressed him on the details, asking if he had heard anything unusual during the night, or if anyone else had been near the hammock. Aaron hesitated, his eyes darting away. "I don't think so," he said, his voice less certain. "It was dark, and we were all pretty drunk." Waisaki noted the inconsistency. His initial statement to the police hadn't mentioned checking on Lauren, and his uncertainty raised red flags. Waisaki then spoke with Christopher Stout and Hannah Palmer, who were still together as a couple, on August 14, 2015, at their home in Cookeville, Tennessee. Christopher, 22, was defensive from the start, his arms crossed as he answered Waisaki's questions. "I don't know what you're trying to dig up," he said, his tone sharp. "Lauren fell. It was an accident. We were all asleep when it happened." Hannah, 21, nodded in agreement, but her story differed slightly from Christopher's. She claimed they had gone to bed at the same time as Lauren, around midnight, while Christopher said they had stayed up arguing until 1 a.m. Waisaki also asked about the argument the couple had that night, which Lauren had tried to mediate. Hannah downplayed it, saying it was just a stupid fight about Christopher drinking too much, but Waisaki sensed they were holding back. The discrepancies in their timelines and their evasive demeanor added to her growing suspicion. Brixner Gambrell, the fourth friend, met with Waisaki on August 15, 2015, at a park in Smithville. Brixner, 22, admitted he had been too drunk to remember much of the night, a detail consistent with his police statement. "I passed out by the fire," he said, his voice quiet. "I didn't even know Lauren was gone until the next morning." But Waisaki noticed something in his demeanor. He seemed genuinely shaken, his eyes welling up as he spoke about Lauren. "She was a good person," he said. "I wish I hadn't been so out of it that night." While Brixner's account didn't provide new information, his emotional response stood in contrast to the other's defensiveness, making Waisaki wonder if he knew more than he was letting on. Waisaki then turned her attention to the official report, comparing it with the autopsy findings. On August 18, 2015, she sat down with a forensic consultant, Dr. Michael Carter, 55, to review the medical examiner's conclusions. Dr. Carter pointed out several inconsistencies. The bruises on Lauren's arms looked like grip marks, suggesting someone might have grabbed her, which wasn't consistent with a fall. The fractured pelvis and laceration on her forehead could have resulted from a fall, but the lack of significant abrasions or scrapes on her body was unusual. If she had fallen down a rocky cliff, there should have been more surface injuries. Additionally, the absence of Lauren's bikini raised questions. If she was wearing it all day, where did it go? Dr. Carter asked, his brow furrowed. It's possible she took it off, but it's also possible someone else removed it. By the end of August 2015, Waisaki had uncovered enough inconsistencies to convince Sherry that Lauren's death was not a simple accident. The friends' conflicting statements, the unusual nature of Lauren's injuries, and the missing bikini all pointed to the possibility of foul play. On August 25, 2015, Waisaki met with Sherry at her home in Hendersonville to share her findings. "I don't believe Lauren fell on her own," Waisaki said, her voice firm. "There's too much that doesn't add up. We need to push for a deeper investigation." Sherry nodded, her resolve hardening. For the first time since Lauren's death, she felt a spark of hope that the truth might finally come to light. By late August 2015, the death of 21-year-old Lauren Agee at Center Hill Lake in Smithville, Tennessee, had taken on a darker tone for her mother, Sherry Smith. The DeKalb County Sheriff's Office had ruled Lauren's death on July 26, 2015, an accidental drowning, claiming she had fallen from a 30-foot cliff while intoxicated during a camping trip at WakeFest. But Sherry's doubts, fueled by inconsistencies in the official report and the statements of Lauren's friends, had led her to hire private investigator Sheila Wysocki. Wysocki's initial findings, conflicting accounts from the friends and questions about Lauren's injuries, had already cast doubt on the accident narrative. Now, as Wysocki dug deeper, new evidence began to emerge, pointing to the possibility of foul play and raising chilling questions about what really happened that night. Wysocki returned to the campsite at Pate's Ford Marina on September 1, 2015, determined to find physical evidence that might have been overlooked by the initial investigation. The cliff where Lauren and her friends had camped was still accessible, though the area had been disturbed by other campers in the weeks since the incident. Wysocki brought along a forensic technician, Mark Daniels, 52, who specialized in crime scene analysis. Together, they combed the area around the hammock where Lauren had slept, using a metal detector and a UV light to search for traces of blood or other clues. Near the edge of the cliff, Daniels spotted something the police had missed: small, faint bloodstains on a rock, partially washed away by rain but still visible under the UV light. "This could be significant," Daniels said, carefully collecting a sample for testing. "If it's Lauren's blood, it suggests she was injured up here before she went into the water." Further down the cliff, closer to the water's edge, Wysocki found another disturbing item: an empty condom wrapper, tucked under a bush about 20 feet from where Lauren's body had been found. The wrapper was weathered but intact, and Wysocki noted its presence with a growing sense of unease. Lauren had been found without her bikini, which she had been wearing all day on July 25, 2015, and the condom wrapper raised the possibility of sexual activity, or worse, assault, that night. Wysocki bagged the wrapper as evidence, her mind racing with the implications. "This doesn't fit with the accident story," she said to Daniels, her voice tense. "We need to find out if Lauren was with someone before she died." Wysocki then turned her attention to Lauren's injuries, working with forensic pathologist Dr. Michael Carter, who had previously reviewed the autopsy report. On September 5, 2015, they met at Carter's office in Nashville to re-examine the findings in light of the new evidence. Carter pointed out that the bruises on Lauren's arms, which looked like grip marks, were inconsistent with a fall. "These marks suggest someone grabbed her, possibly with force," he said, showing Wysocki photos from the autopsy. "And the fractured pelvis, it's a severe injury, more likely from a direct impact than a fall down a rocky cliff. If she had fallen, we'd expect more abrasions, more superficial injuries." Carter also noted a detail that had been overlooked. Lauren had a small amount of sand in her lungs, which could indicate she was still breathing when she entered the water, but the amount was minimal, suggesting she may have been unconscious or already severely injured before drowning. The absence of Lauren's bikini continued to trouble Wysocki. On September 7, 2015, she interviewed a local fisherman, Tom Bennett, 60, who had been on the lake the morning Lauren's body was found. Bennett recalled seeing a piece of fabric floating near the cove where Lauren was discovered, which he described as a bright blue bikini top. He hadn't thought much of it at the time, assuming it belonged to a swimmer, but he told Wysocki he had seen one of the sheriff's deputies pick it up and place it in an evidence bag. Wysocki checked the sheriff's inventory list from the investigation, but there was no record of a bikini top being collected. "This is a problem," Wysocki said to Sherry during a phone call that evening. "If they found her bikini and didn't log it, that's either negligence or a cover-up. We need to find out what happened to it." Wysocki also revisited the statements of Lauren's friends, focusing on their behavior after her death. On September 10, 2015, she learned from a mutual friend, Emily Carter, 22, that Christopher Stout and Hannah Palmer had been acting strangely in the days following the incident. Emily told Wysocki that Christopher had been unusually quiet, avoiding questions about Lauren, while Hannah had seemed nervous, often changing the subject when Lauren's name came up. Emily also mentioned that Aaron Lilly had told her he felt guilty for not checking on Lauren during the night, a detail he hadn't shared with the police or Wysocki in his initial interview. These inconsistencies deepened Wysocki's suspicion that the friends knew more than they were letting on. On September 15, 2015, Wysocki met with a dive team to search the cove where Lauren's body had been found, hoping to recover additional evidence. The team, led by diver John Matthews, 45, spent hours combing the lake bed. Near the spot where Lauren had been discovered, they found a small piece of fabric that matched the description of her bikini bottom, bright blue with a small white star pattern. The fabric was torn, and Matthews noted that it appeared to have been caught on a rock underwater. Wysocki sent the fabric for forensic testing, hoping it might contain DNA evidence that could link someone to Lauren's death. "This is a game changer," Wysocki told Sherry during a meeting on September 20, 2015, at Sherry's home in Hendersonville. "If we can prove someone removed her bikini, it changes everything." The evidence uncovered by Wysocki in September 2015 painted a troubling picture, suggesting that Lauren's death may not have been an accident. The bloodstains on the cliff, the condom wrapper, the inconsistencies in her injuries, the missing bikini, and the friend's evasive behavior all pointed to the possibility of foul play. Sherry sat with Wysocki, her hands clenched tightly around a photo of Lauren, her resolve growing stronger with each new revelation. "I knew it," she said, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. "My daughter didn't just fall. Someone did this to her, and I'm going to find out who." By early 2016, Sherry Smith had spent months grappling with the loss of her 21-year-old daughter, Lauren Agee, who died on July 26, 2015, at Center Hill Lake in Smithville, Tennessee. The DeKalb County Sheriff's Office had ruled Lauren's death an accidental drowning, claiming she had fallen from a 30-foot cliff while intoxicated during a camping trip at WakeFest. But Sherry's private investigator, Sheila Wysocki, had uncovered troubling evidence: bloodstains on the cliff, a condom wrapper, Lauren's torn bikini bottom, and inconsistencies in her injuries and the friend's statements that suggested foul play. Determined to seek justice for Lauren, Sherry took a significant step, filing a wrongful death lawsuit against Lauren's friends, which would lead to a pivotal court ruling in 2018 that challenged the official narrative of her death. Sherry's decision to pursue legal action came after months of frustration with the lack of progress in the criminal investigation. On March 15, 2016, she met with an attorney, John Phillips, 40, in Nashville, Tennessee, to discuss her options. Phillips, who specialized in wrongful death cases, reviewed Wysocki's findings and agreed that there was enough evidence to support a civil lawsuit. "We can't force a criminal investigation, but we can hold Lauren's friends accountable through a civil suit," Phillips told Sherry, his tone confident. "We'll sue for wrongful death and negligence, and we'll use the evidence to show that Lauren's death wasn't an accident." Sherry nodded, her resolve unwavering. "I want them to answer for what happened," she said, clutching a photo of Lauren. "They know more than they're saying, and I won't stop until I get the truth." On April 10, 2016, Sherry filed a wrongful death lawsuit in DeKalb County Circuit Court against Aaron Lilly, Christopher Stout, Hannah Palmer, and Brixner Gambrell, the friends who had been with Lauren the night she died. The lawsuit alleged that the friends were negligent in their duty to ensure Lauren's safety, claiming they had failed to supervise her while she was intoxicated and had not sought help when she went missing. More significantly, the suit accused them of withholding critical information about the events of that night, suggesting their actions or inactions contributed to Lauren's death. The filing sought $10 million in damages, a sum meant to reflect the profound loss of Lauren's life and to pressure the friends into revealing what they knew. The lawsuit sent shockwaves through the small community of Smithville, where the case had already stirred controversy. Aaron, Christopher, Hannah, and Brixner hired their own attorneys to defend against the claims, maintaining their story that Lauren's death was a tragic accident. On May 5, 2016, Christopher and Hannah held a press conference in Cookeville, Tennessee, with their lawyer, David Weiss, 48, by their side. "We loved Lauren," Christopher said, his voice steady but his eyes avoiding the cameras. "We had no idea anything was wrong until the next morning. This lawsuit is baseless and we'll fight it." Hannah nodded, adding, "We're devastated by her loss, but we didn't do anything wrong." Their statements did little to quell Sherry's suspicions. She believed their defensiveness hid a deeper truth. The case moved slowly through the court system, with both sides gathering evidence and deposing witnesses. Wysocki continued her investigation, providing Phillips with detailed reports on the physical evidence, including the bloodstains on the cliff, the condom wrapper, and the torn bikini bottom found in the lake. On September 20, 2016, during a deposition, Aaron Lilly admitted under oath that he had seen Lauren in the hammock at midnight, but hadn't checked on her again before going to sleep. This contradicted his earlier claim to Wysocki that he had checked on her before bed, further eroding his credibility. Christopher and Hannah's depositions revealed more inconsistencies. Christopher claimed he had gone to bed at 1 a.m., while Hannah insisted it was earlier, around midnight, raising questions about their timeline of events. The trial began on June 4, 2018, in DeKalb County Circuit Court, presided over by Judge Amy Hollers, 55. The courtroom was packed with reporters, Lauren's family, and curious locals, all eager to hear the evidence in a case that had gripped the community. Phillips presented a compelling case, calling Wysocki to the stand to testify about her findings. Wysocki described the bloodstains on the cliff, the condom wrapper, and the bikini bottom, emphasizing that these items suggested Lauren had been with someone before her death. She also highlighted the inconsistencies in the friends' statements, arguing that their evasive behavior indicated they were hiding something. Dr. Michael Carter, the forensic pathologist who had reviewed the autopsy, testified about Lauren's injuries, stating that the grip marks on her arms and the fractured pelvis were more consistent with an assault than a fall. The defense, representing Aaron, Christopher, Hannah, and Brixner, argued that the evidence was circumstantial and that Lauren's death was a tragic accident caused by her own intoxication. They called a forensic expert, Dr. Laura Bennett, 50, who testified that Lauren's blood alcohol level of 0.17 could have impaired her judgment, leading her to stumble off the cliff. But under cross-examination, Dr. Bennett admitted that the grip marks on Lauren's arms were difficult to explain as part of a fall, weakening the defense's case. The friends also took the stand, sticking to their story that they had all been asleep when Lauren went missing. But their testimonies were marked by hesitations and contradictions that didn't go unnoticed by the judge. On June 20, 2018, after 2 weeks of testimony, Judge Hollers delivered her ruling. In a detailed 30-page decision, she found that Lauren's death was not an accident, overturning the DeKalb County Sheriff's conclusion. The evidence presented, including the physical injuries, the presence of a condom wrapper, and the inconsistencies in the defendant's statements, suggests that Lauren Agee's death was the result of foul play, Hollers wrote. She awarded Sherry $10 million in damages, holding Aaron, Christopher, and Hannah liable for negligence and wrongful death. Brixner was not found liable, as the court determined he had been too intoxicated to be responsible for Lauren's safety. The ruling was a significant victory for Sherry, validating her belief that Lauren's death was no accident. Outside the courthouse, Sherry spoke to reporters at 2 p.m., her voice filled with a mix of relief and determination. "This is a step toward justice for Lauren," she said, holding a photo of her daughter. "The court saw what I've known all along. My daughter didn't just fall. But this isn't the end. I want a criminal investigation reopened. I want to know who did this to her." The 2018 ruling marked a turning point in the Lake murder case, challenging the official narrative and reigniting public interest in Lauren's death. But for Sherry, the fight for full justice was far from over. By 2020, The death of 21-year-old Lauren Agee at Center Hill Lake in Smithville, Tennessee, had become a cause célèbre in the true crime community, a case that refused to fade into obscurity despite the passage of time. Lauren had died on July 26, 2015, during a camping trip at WakeFest, and the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office had initially ruled her death an accidental drowning, claiming she had fallen from a 30-foot cliff while intoxicated. But a 2018 civil court ruling, following a wrongful death lawsuit filed by Lauren's mother, Sherry Smith, had overturned that conclusion, finding that Lauren's death was not an accident and holding 3 of her friends, Aaron Lilly, Christopher Stout, and Hannah Palmer, liable for negligence. The ruling awarded Sherry $10 million, but it did little to bring her the closure she sought. As the case gained national attention through podcasts and media, the lack of criminal charges left Sherry and her supporters frustrated, fueling a growing movement to uncover the truth. The turning point in the case's public profile came in late 2018, when a podcast called Without Warning, hosted by Sheila Wysocki, the private investigator Sherry had hired in 2015, began covering Lauren's story. Wysocki, now 51, had been relentless in her pursuit of justice for Lauren, and the podcast became a platform to share her findings with a wider audience. The first episode, released on November 10, 2018, detailed the events of Lauren's death, the inconsistencies in the official report, and the evidence Wysocki had uncovered, including bloodstains on the cliff, a condom wrapper, and Lauren's torn bikini bottom. Wysocki's calm, methodical narration drew listeners in, her voice carrying the weight of years spent investigating the case. Lauren Agee didn't just fall, she said in the opening episode. The evidence tells a different story, and it's time for the world to hear it. The podcast quickly gained traction, amassing thousands of downloads within weeks. True crime fans on platforms like Reddit and Twitter began discussing the case, with threads in the r/unresolved mysteries subreddit dissecting every detail. A user named @LakeTruthSeeker posted on December 5, 2018, "The injuries on Lauren's body don't match a fall. Those grip marks on her arms are chilling. Why hasn't concurrent criminal investigation?" The online buzz caught the attention of major media outlets, and by early 2019, the case was being covered by national news programs. On March 15, 2019, Dateline NBC aired an episode titled, "What Happened to Lauren Agee?" featuring interviews with Sherry, Wysocki, and forensic experts who questioned the accidental drowning conclusion. The episode drew over 4 million viewers, bringing Lauren's story to a mainstream audience. Sherry, now 49, became a reluctant public figure, using the media attention to push for a criminal investigation. On April 20, 2019, she appeared on Good Morning America, sitting across from host Amy Robach, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "My daughter was taken from me, and I believe someone knows what happened," Sherry said, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. The civil court ruled her death wasn't an accident, but no one has been held criminally accountable. "I'm begging the authorities to reopen the case." The interview struck a chord with viewers, many of whom began writing to the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office, demanding action. A petition on change.org, started by a supporter named Jessica Taylor, 30, called for the case to be reopened, gathering over 50,000 signatures by the end of 2019. Despite the public pressure, the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office remained unmoved. Sheriff Patrick Ray, now 55, issued a statement on January 10, 2020, defending the original investigation. "We conducted a thorough investigation in 2015, and the evidence supported the conclusion of accidental drowning," Ray said. The civil court's ruling does not change the criminal standard of proof, which requires evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. At this time, there is no new evidence to justify reopening the case. The statement infuriated Sherry, who felt the sheriff was ignoring the evidence Wysocki had uncovered. She met with Ray in person on January 15, 2020, at his office in Smithville, bringing a binder filled with Wysocki's reports. "You have bloodstains, a condom wrapper, and my daughter's injuries," Sherry said, her voice rising with frustration. "How is that not enough to at least look again?" Ray listened but remained non-committal, promising only to review the materials. The lack of criminal charges left Lauren's friends, Aaron, Christopher, and Hannah, in a legal limbo. The 2018 civil ruling had found them liable for negligence, but they had not been charged with any crime. Aaron, now 28, had moved to Knoxville, Tennessee, where he worked as a mechanic, keeping a low profile. Christopher and Hannah, both 27, had broken up in 2019, with Christopher moving to Chattanooga and Hannah staying in Cookeville. The media attention made their lives difficult, with online sleuths and true crime fans harassing them on social media. On February 5, 2020, Christopher received a threatening message on Instagram that read, "You killed Lauren, and you're going to pay." He reported it to the police, but the incident underscored the public's growing anger over the lack of accountability. Meanwhile, the true crime community continued to keep Lauren's case alive. On March 20, 2020, a YouTube channel called Crime Watch Daily released a 30-minute video about the case, featuring interviews with Sherry and Wysocki, as well as reenactments of the night Lauren died. The video garnered over 1 million views, further amplifying the call for justice. Social media hashtags like #JusticeForLaurenAgee trended on Twitter, with users sharing theories about what might have happened. Some speculated that Lauren had been assaulted and pushed off the cliff, while others believed her friends were covering up a drunken altercation that had gone horribly wrong. The lack of concrete answers only fueled the public's fascination. Sherry, though encouraged by the support, felt the weight of the ongoing fight. On July 26, 2020, the 5th anniversary of Lauren's death, she visited her daughter's grave at Hendersonville Memory Gardens, placing a bouquet of sunflowers, Lauren's favorite, on the headstone. She sat by the grave for hours, her fingers tracing the engraved words, "Forever loved." "I'm still fighting for you, baby," Sherry whispered, her voice breaking. "I won't stop until I know the truth." The national attention had brought Lauren's story to millions, but without criminal charges, the Lake murder remained a haunting mystery, leaving Sherry to carry on her quest for justice alone. By 2022, the death of 21-year-old Lauren Agee at Center Hill Lake in Smithville, Tennessee, had become a rallying cry for those seeking justice in unresolved cases. Lauren had died on July 26, 2015, during a camping trip at WakeFest, a wakeboarding festival, and the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office had initially ruled her death an accidental drowning, claiming she had fallen from a 30-foot cliff while intoxicated. But a 2018 civil court ruling, following a wrongful death lawsuit filed by Lauren's mother, Sherry Smith, had found that her death was not an accident, holding 3 of her friends, Aaron Lilly, Christopher Stout, and Hannah Palmer, liable for negligence. Despite national attention from podcasts and media, no criminal charges had been filed by 2020, leaving Sherry to continue her fight for justice. Now, in 2022, Sherry channeled her grief into a broader mission, raising awareness about suspicious deaths at lakes while still seeking answers in her daughter's case. Sherry, now 52, had spent the past 7 years consumed by the loss of Lauren, but she refused to let her daughter's story fade into obscurity. The media attention from 2019 and 2020, including the Without Warning podcast and Dateline NBC episode, had brought Lauren's case to a wide audience, but the lack of criminal charges left Sherry feeling stuck. She had won $10 million in the civil lawsuit, but the money meant little to her. It couldn't bring Lauren back, and it couldn't force the authorities to reopen the case. On January 10, 2022, Sherry sat down with her sister, Lisa, 48, at her home in Hendersonville, Tennessee, surrounded by photos of Lauren. "I can't stop," Sherry said, her voice firm despite the exhaustion in her eyes. "Lauren deserves justice, and I need to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else." Lisa nodded, placing a hand on Sherry's shoulder. "You're doing everything you can," she said. "Lauren would be proud of you." Inspired by the public support for Lauren's case, Sherry decided to expand her efforts, focusing on raising awareness about the dangers of lakes and the need for better investigations into suspicious deaths. On March 15, 2022, she launched a nonprofit organization called Lauren's Light, dedicated to advocating for families of victims whose deaths had been misclassified as accidents. The organization's mission was twofold: to provide support for grieving families and to push for legislative changes that would require more thorough investigations into deaths at recreational areas like lakes. Sherry announced the launch at a press conference in Nashville, standing in front of a banner with Lauren's smiling face. "My daughter's death was ruled an accident, but the evidence showed otherwise," Sherry said, her voice steady as she addressed the crowd. "Too many families are told their loved ones died by accident when the truth is being overlooked. Lauren's Light will fight for them, just as I'm fighting for Lauren." The launch of Lauren's Light gained significant attention, with local news outlets covering the event and true crime communities on social media amplifying Sherry's message. A Twitter user named @JusticeForLauren tweeted on March 16, 2022, "Sherry Smith is a hero. Lauren's Light is going to help so many families. #Justice for Lauren Agee." The organization quickly grew, attracting volunteers and donations from across the country. By June 2022, Lauren's Light had partnered with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children to create a database of suspicious deaths at lakes, documenting cases where families believed the official rulings were incorrect. One such case involved a 19-year-old named Emily Carter, who had died at Lake Lanier in Georgia in 2020 under similar circumstances. Her death was ruled an accidental drowning, but her family suspected foul play due to unexplained injuries. Sherry also began speaking at events to raise awareness, sharing Lauren's story and educating the public about the risks of lakes. On July 26, 2022, the 7th anniversary of Lauren's death, she spoke at a safety seminar at Center Hill Lake, the very place where Lauren had died. The event, organized by a local community group, drew a crowd of over 200 people, including families who had lost loved ones in similar incidents. Sherry stood on a small stage near the marina, a photo of Lauren projected on a screen behind her. "Lakes can be beautiful, but they can also be dangerous," she said, her voice carrying over the crowd. "We need better safety measures, more lighting, more patrols, and better investigations when something goes wrong. My daughter's death was no accident, and I'm here to make sure other families don't have to go through what I have." The audience applauded, many wiping away tears as Sherry's words resonated with their own experiences. While Sherry's advocacy work gained momentum, she continued to press the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office to reopen Lauren's case. On September 10, 2022, she met with Sheriff Patrick Ray, now 57, at his office in Smithville, bringing a petition with over 75,000 signatures from supporters demanding a new investigation. Ray listened as Sherry presented the evidence once again: the bloodstains on the cliff, the condom wrapper, the torn bikini bottom, and the grip marks on Lauren's arms. "The civil court already ruled her death wasn't an accident," Sherry said, her voice firm but pleading. "How many more people have to ask before you take this seriously?" Ray sighed, his expression weary. "I understand your frustration, Ms. Smith," he said, "but we need new, concrete evidence to justify reopening a criminal case. The civil ruling doesn't meet the criminal standard of proof." Sherry left the meeting feeling defeated, but her determination only grew stronger. The lack of progress in Lauren's case was a constant source of pain for Sherry, but her work with Lauren's Light gave her a sense of purpose. On November 5, 2022, she organized a vigil at Center Hill Lake to honor Lauren and other victims of suspicious lake deaths. Over 300 people attended, holding candles as they gathered near the marina where Lauren had last been seen alive. Sherry spoke at the event, her voice breaking as she addressed the crowd. "Lauren loved this lake," she said, looking out at the water shimmering under the moonlight. "But it took her from me, and I believe someone knows why. I'll never stop fighting for her, and I'll never stop fighting for all the families who've lost someone they love." The vigil was a powerful moment, a testament to Sherry's unwavering commitment to her daughter's memory and her mission to prevent other tragedies. In 2022, Sherry Smith's fight for justice had evolved into a broader crusade, raising awareness about suspicious deaths at lakes and giving a voice to families who felt ignored by the system. Lauren's light had become a beacon of hope for many, but for Sherry, the unresolved nature of her daughter's case remained a heavy burden, a mystery that continued to haunt her as she carried on her mission. By March 2025, nearly a decade had passed since the death of 21-year-old Lauren Agee at Center Hill Lake in Smithville, Tennessee, on July 26, 2015. The case, known as the Lake Murder, had become a haunting symbol of unresolved justice, a story that continued to captivate true crime enthusiasts and frustrate those who sought answers. The DeKalb County Sheriff's Office had initially ruled Lauren's death an accidental drowning, claiming she had fallen from a 30-foot cliff while intoxicated during a camping trip at WakeFest. But a 2018 civil court ruling had overturned that conclusion, finding that Lauren's death was not an accident and holding 3 of her friends, Erin Lilly, Christopher Stout, and Hannah Palmer, liable for negligence. Despite national attention and Sherry Smith's relentless advocacy, no criminal charges had been filed, leaving the case unsolved. As Sherry continued her fight for answers, her work with Lauren's light kept Lauren's memory alive, a beacon of hope for other families seeking justice. Sherry Smith, now 55, had spent the past 10 years consumed by the loss of her daughter, but her determination to find the truth had not wavered. The civil court victory in 2018 had awarded her $10 million, but the money sat untouched in a trust fund. She had no interest in it, as it couldn't bring Lauren back or force the authorities to reopen the case. By 2025, Sherry had become a well-known advocate for victims of suspicious deaths, her nonprofit organization, Lauren's Light, growing into a national movement. The organization had helped dozens of families navigate the legal system, pushing for re-examinations of cases where deaths had been misclassified as accidents. On March 1, 2025, Sherry spoke at a conference in Washington, D.C., organized by the National Center for Victims of Crime, addressing a crowd of over 500 people. "Lauren's light is about more than my daughter," she said, her voice steady as she held up a photo of Lauren smiling at a family picnic. "It's about every family who's been told their loved one's death was an accident when the evidence says otherwise. We won't stop until the truth comes out." The true crime community continued to keep Lauren's case in the spotlight, with new podcasts and documentaries revisiting the story. In January 2025, a Netflix documentary series called Unsolved at the Lake dedicated an episode to Lauren's death, featuring interviews with Sherry, private investigator Sheila Wysocki, and forensic experts who had reviewed the case. The episode, which aired on January 15, 2025, drew over 2 million viewers in its first week, reigniting public interest. Social media platforms buzzed with discussions, with the hashtag #JusticeForLaurenAgee trending on Twitter. A user named @TrueCrimeFan2025 tweeted on January 16, 2025, "The evidence in Lauren Agee's case is so compelling. Bloodstains, a condom wrapper, grip marks. How is this still unsolved? #JusticeForLaurenAgee." The renewed attention brought fresh pressure on the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office, but Sheriff Patrick Ray, now 60, maintained his stance, stating in a press release on January 20, 2025, "We have no new evidence to justify reopening the case at this time." Lauren's friends, who had been found liable in the civil suit, had largely faded from public view by 2025. Erin Lilly, now 33, lived in Knoxville, Tennessee, working as a mechanic and keeping a low profile. Christopher Stout, 32, had moved to Atlanta, Georgia, where he worked in construction, while Hannah Palmer, also 32, remained in Cookeville, Tennessee, working as a nurse. The civil ruling had damaged their reputations, and they had faced years of harassment from true crime fans and online sleuths. On February 5, 2025, Hannah received an anonymous email that read, "You can't hide forever. We know what you did to Lauren." She reported it to the police, but the incident was a stark reminder of the lingering suspicion that followed them. Brixner Gambrell, 32, who had not been found liable in the civil suit, had moved to Nashville and stayed out of the public eye, occasionally expressing remorse for his inability to help that night due to his intoxication. Sherry's advocacy through Lauren's light had led to tangible changes by 2025. In 2023, Tennessee passed a new law, dubbed Lauren's Law, which required law enforcement agencies to conduct more thorough investigations into deaths at recreational areas like lakes, including mandatory autopsies and the preservation of all physical evidence. The law was a direct result of Sherry's lobbying efforts, and it had already led to the reclassification of 2 lake deaths in Tennessee as homicides by 2025. On March 10, 2025, Sherry received a letter from a mother named Karen Ellis, 48, whose son had died at Lake Cumberland in 2021. Because of Lauren's Law, my son's case was reopened, and they found evidence of foul play, Karen wrote. Thank you for fighting for us. The letter brought tears to Sherry's eyes, a bittersweet reminder of the impact she was making, even as her own daughter's case remained unsolved. On March 26, 2025, the 10th anniversary of Lauren's death, Sherry organized a memorial event at Center Hill Lake, the place where Lauren had taken her last breath. Over 400 people attended, gathering near Pate's Ford Marina under a clear spring sky. Volunteers from Lauren's Light handed out candles, and a local choir sang a haunting rendition of Amazing Grace as the sun set over the lake. Sherry stood on a small platform, a photo of Lauren projected behind her, showing her daughter wakeboarding on the lake, her face lit up with joy. 10 years ago, I lost my daughter here, Sherry said, her voice trembling with emotion. I still don't know exactly what happened that night, but I know she didn't just fall. Someone out there knows the truth, and I'm begging you to come forward. Lauren deserves justice, and I'll never stop fighting for her. The crowd erupted in applause, many holding up signs that read "Justice for Lauren Agee." After the memorial, Sherry walked to the edge of the cliff where Lauren had camped, the same spot where she had slept in a hammock that fateful night. The area was quiet now, the only sound the gentle lapping of the water below. Sherry knelt down, placing a single sunflower, Lauren's favorite flower, on the ground, her fingers brushing the earth as she whispered, "I love you, Lauren. I'll keep going, I promise." She stood looking out at the lake, its surface shimmering in the moonlight, a place of beauty that had become a place of pain. The lake murder remained unsolved, a mystery that continued to haunt Sherry and the true crime community, but her advocacy through Lauren's Light ensured that Lauren's legacy would endure, a call for justice that echoed far beyond the shores of Center Hill Lake.